Hello and welcome to the romance track here at Continual. And tonight we are talking about Dicks, Pricks, Hellspawn, and those who love them, the bad boys, and why we keep coming back time and again. But before we launch into that, let's let my wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Ari.
Hi, I'm Ari McKay, and with my currently present co-writer, Rachel Langella, we write in both the contemporary as Ari and as and our paranormals are under Rachel Langella.
Okay, Belinda.
Hi, I'm Belinda McBride, and I write pretty much everything. I'm pretty eclectic, but I usually stay in the paranormal and science fiction worlds. I write heterosexual romance, I write gay romance, I write poly romance, and I write non-romance. So my better known books are An Uncommon Horror, Black and Blue, Doms of Darkhaven. So that's me.
Sounds good. Rachel?
Yeah.
So I am the other half of Ari McKay. Some of our books are right behind me, our Asheville Arcana series, starting with Out of the Ashes over here. Yeah, I think Ari pretty much covered it, though. We write a lot of different things as well, but primarily either in the contemporary or the paranormal pool.
Okay. And I'm Gail C. Martin and Morgan Brice. As Gail, I write urban fantasy, epic fantasy, and more. And as Morgan, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. So vampires, werewolves, shifters, ghosts, witches, all kinds of things, and lots of bad boys to pick from. So what do you think is the attraction to the bad boy? Belinda?
The taboo. You know, he's the boy that our mom warned us against, probably because she fell victim to him too, and he might be our father. So for me, I think that's what I like. Also, when you're dealing with a bad guy, I mean, you've got such a range to pick from, and you know, they can be all the way from the crazy evil guy to the kind of misunderstood anti-hero. So there's a lot of material to play with there.
Okay. Rachel?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. It's the lure of the mystery, the taboo, and plus, I think, I don't want to get too heavy, but I think as women, we are often socialized to be caretakers and blah, blah, blah. And you know, that kind of figure is romanticized, like, oh, I'm the one who can fix him. And that's sort of like a cultural socialization, indoctrination thing, not necessarily a healthy one, but it's certainly there.
Okay. Ari?
I think that in a lot of ways, for me, it's the danger. It's not knowing exactly what you're going to get. As Rachel said, the mystery of it. I mean, how bad is bad? You know, you might find he's not quite as bad as you think, and maybe he's worse than you think. But it's an unknown.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to be said for the allure of the troubled, broken guy that needs love, and the hope for a redemption arc, and the true love fixes all. And we know that in the real world that often doesn't work, but it makes for a great story, and it makes for a character with a very compelling backstory, depending on where you're looking to take the series, because whether you're following one character or several, it's always interesting when they've been places and done things and maybe have a past that comes back to haunt them. So how do you turn that Dick Prick or Hellspawn into a love interest? Ari?
Well, there's a couple of ways you can handle it. And a lot of it does depend on the nature of how bad is bad, right? It's much worse trying to turn around someone who is, basically like intrinsically evil. Not saying it can't be done, it can, but, and we had this conversation at GRL, if Belinda will remember, about where do you hit the part about being irredeemably evil, that you just don't even want to try to bring them back. But, if you're addressing somebody who's basically just troubled or has got a perception of having this aura about them, say like a Han Solo type, where maybe he's not been the most honorable person, you find the way in the character to pull out the good that you are sure is inside of them. The problem is if you have a character where, is there any good inside of them?
Okay. Rachel?
Yeah, to kind of piggyback on that, I think, you do have to make a distinction between bad boy with like the Han Solo, bad boy scoundrel, but there's some good in there, versus irredeemably evil. Like, okay, you have officially passed the point of no return. I guess since we're staying in the Star Wars realm, that would be kind of like Han Solo versus Anakin. Yeah, Han Solo cheats at cards or whatever, but he's a gambler and he sometimes cheats and he shoots under the table, but he didn't kill the Padawans. So there's and I think it's significant that for Darth Vader / Anakin, the redemption didn't come until he was literally on his deathbed, because that's really, the only time it could come. There was nothing for him after that. So I think Ari and I tend to go for the ones who are scoundrels, anti-heroes, bad boys, maybe a little bit broken, in need of the fixing, and so on. And if you can show the reader that good, no matter how bad they act, if you can give the reader hints of sympathy, something for them to relate to, something for them to see, oh, this character, there's something worthwhile pulling out, he's not just a dick, then you're going to get that reader connection with them, and you can proceed with their redemption arc.
How about you, Belinda?
Well, I'm thinking about, I said this at GRL, and I always say this, the villain is the hero of his own story. And so I'm going to jump into soap operas instead of Star Wars, which, isn't a whole lot different, really. I'm trying to name it. It was John Aniston that had made that comment, because he played this
Days of Our
villain.
Lives.
Days of Our Lives, and Jennifer Aniston's father. And so somebody asked him in a review or interview, how does it feel playing the most evil man on TV? And he says, he's not a villain. He says, the villain, Victor Kiriakis, is the good guy. His villain is John Black. His villain is that guy that everybody calls the hero. He keeps getting in my way, and I'm just trying to take care of my family. So you have to approach it that way. They don't necessarily see themselves as evil. And then when you jump into the anti-hero, and I'm going to leave soap operas now and go to Hong Kong cinema, there's a Chow Yun-Fat movie named Hard Boiled that's famous for a villain named Mad Dog. And he's like the Terminator. He's like a little Terminator through the whole movie. And at the end of the movie, he makes a sacrifice to protect innocent people. And he makes a huge sacrifice, eventually, of his life. And you saw how far he goes, and he operates by his own rules. And then when his rules are violated, he's like, I'm done. And I think that's where I look for redemption in one of my villains is, there are places we won't go. We won't go to rape. We won't go to child abuse, that sort of thing. when trying to redeem a hero to bring them back, you have to show them in a heroic a heroic perspective, like this Mad Dog character. I mean, everybody hated him all through the movie, and at the end of the movie, he turned around and tried to protect these people, and it was like, oh. So that's what I look for, is the hero inside the villain, and there usually is one.
Okay. Now, what about the Hellspawn piece? If you're starting with a demon, or however you want to play that Hellspawn, where's the redeemable piece when you're starting with a so-called evil supernatural character? Rachel?
Well, I'm going to steal from Good Omens, and I'm going to say, well, is it so much that he fell or that he sauntered vaguely downwards? Like Crowley, because there's a demon, but he ultimately saves the world. So how demonic is he really?
For love, he saves the world.
Yes. So yeah, it's a matter of degree. I mean, I think that on some level you can, and writers have done this, you can make Lucifer sympathetic. You can make him a hero. I mean, there's like a TV show about that now. And again, Neil Gaiman did that in Sandman. It made Lucifer a very sympathetic character. So I think it can be done. It's just, but it's going to take characterization, nuance, depth. And it has to, be a character who is just not pure, unadulterated evil. There's got to be something that can be pulled out, kind of like what you said about the hero within the villain. There's got to be the angel within the devil.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge Supernatural fan of the TV show, and you've got several demons along the way who end up caring when they didn't think they could care about anybody. And ultimately that does lead to sacrifice and saving people. But in all of those cases, they had originally been human and then made some bad decisions, usually a deal, gone down under. And that piece of humanity that was left eventually is their redemption. It makes them a bad demon, but it makes them, in the end, a good hero. All right.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree with that. One thing that in our Asheville Arcana universe that's a little different is that we have demons and devils that are not, they're soulless. So they have, in at least the lexicon of our world, they have no free will. Therefore, they are just manifestations of evil. And we would never try to make one of those the hero, because there's nothing that's even meant to be relatable about them. Now, a fallen angel, which you consider to be a creature that had a soul, is a whole entirely different thing. And I don't know that we would ever redeem one of our fallen angels in the Asheville Arcana universe, but the possibility is there. Mostly, the fallen angel types make really good villains, but we haven't explored that section of the universe enough in our stories, at least to even try to bring one of those back. But we do have plenty of irredeemably evil, even humans in like Blood Bathory and stuff, like Elizabeth Bathory, no bringing her back from where she was. But, as Rachel said, there's got to be some tiny piece in there that the reader can latch onto. And what do all readers want? They want to see themselves in these characters, right? They want to say, oh, I may have done this bad thing in my life, but so did they. And they came back from that and they found love and they got their reward. So it's very, very important to offer that connection to a reader, to make sure that they can find that, to pull that character and to make them sympathetic to that character.
Okay. Belinda, any thoughts on that?
So far, I've only done one Hellspawn type character as a hero. And a lot of my human heroes, I don't think I would ever try to redeem. You know, I think that they're in a lot of ways worse than what this character ever was. And um, his book is called Devil's Advocate because he is literally Satan's lawyer. He's a demon. He is not a fallen angel. You know, he was born down in hell, and he's just, you know, he's an incredibly powerful demon. He is corrupt. He is amoral. He'll go out into public, and if he's collecting a soul, he'll take it right there in the middle of a crowd and walk away. You know, he's and yet at the same time, he is Satan's lawyer. And in the course of his story, he's kind of well, he's approached to do a favor. He's approached to return a soul to a young woman, and you know, she and her husband are beseeching him to save her soul. And he's like, oh, you know, her soul's not really even gone, and she doesn't. What's wrong with her isn't what she thinks is wrong, but hey, they're offering me sex. And so, as their story kind of unrolls, it's kind of like his conscience kicks in. And by the end of the story, he's still a demon. He is still bad. He's continually being challenged by other demons, but he's doing pro bono work for women, victims of domestic abuse and this sort of thing. And he's completely fallen from his demon status. And now all of a sudden he's this demon who's been, you know, blacklisted from hell. And he's okay with it, you know, and he's still kind of a bad guy at everything like this, but he found the two people that look at his bad points and say, I can live with that. I mean, it's not, you know, in that situation, I would probably do the same thing. And so he found the right people for him. But yeah, it's finding that character, finding that redeemable self, that human spark, the Achilles heel, the soft underbelly, that sort of thing. And he was fun. I'm going to go back to him.
Now, some of the humans, as you've mentioned, can be every bit as awful as the supernatural creatures. And of course, you know, thrown into that mix of bad boys, we have the vampires and the werewolves and the shifters and the creatures. Pardon me. But we've also got the spoiled brat billionaires, the trust fund baby, the CEO that thinks he walks on water. What do we do with those? Ari?
Well, actually, we actually wrote one of those kind of trust fund babies with commitment issues in one of our stories. And, you know, again, it's, you know, as long as you haven't made somebody irredeemable, and that tends to be on the author's scale of what is irredeemable. Like, okay, I wouldn't even try to bring back somebody like, say, Elizabeth Bathory, right? Or Guy de Rais, or Vlad Tepes, for that matter. I mean, for all that we romanticize Dracula, that human was an evil effing human. You know, you don't, there, I wouldn't feel any comfort. I'm fine with sending heroes crashing. That's a lot more fun because you don't even worry where you put them. But, you know, trying to bring back somebody that bad, but I think that it takes a very special and almost legendary human to be that bad. We're talking serial killers, though. My God, they even romanticize serial killers. It's not a show I've ever gotten into, but you know, that's not for me. But there's got to be something that, as an author, you can connect with, that you can connect your reader to try to give them something. So that's, you know, do you even want to try to bring back a human that's that bad? We have brought back like some people with some really bad commitment issues who've done bad things, who have, like, you know, repossessed people's homes and all that kind of stuff. And oh my God, lawyers, right? You want to talk about evil? You know, I think Satan's lawyer would have to have, you know, like this double X on him, right? demon and lawyer. But we had a lawyer who was not that great of a guy, and we were able to bring him back. And that was in Heart of Glass. That was one of our Lawyers in Love series. But they do have to have a connection that can be made.
Okay, Belinda?
I don't write contemporary, so I most of my characters tend to be like out there somewhere. But there's one human that I won't try to bring back, and he's the primary villain in my Uncommon Horror series. And I'm about 4 books in, and he appears in all of these. And in his first book, he's just like a cameo, literally. And by the 4th book, you're starting to see he is a master manipulator. He's a mad scientist. He's Mengele. I'm not going there. He's charming, and he's attractive, and he's wonderful, but he's a monster. But when you're taking it over to the guys that are just the trust fund babies and the billionaires and stuff like this, I feel like they need to be brought down. They need to grovel. Elizabeth Hoyt is great for that. She's a historical author. She'll take these dukes, and she had one that he had a sister who was going blind, and he just wanted to wrap her in cotton wool and protect her and keep her away from the men that wanted to marry her and everything. And then he's just too powerful, too arrogant. When he falls in love, he falls to the basement. And so literally he's on his knees by the end of the book, and that is, the groveling is wonderful, and I think that's where you have to go with some of these really entitled characters. Is they have to be brought down. They have to see the real world. They have to see their hearts. They have to have an awakening. Yeah, that's fun to read.
Yeah. What do you think, Rachel?
Sorry, I got distracted by my cats. What was the question? That completely threw me off. That was cat damage.
Dicks and pricks, the entitled bad boys, the billionaires, those guys. What do you do with them?
I'm going to agree a lot with Belinda. Like, they need to be brought down. A lot of times it's ego and arrogance that is fueling their behavior. And I believe Ari mentioned one of our lawyers. And that's what had to happen. He had to be brought down, humanized to himself and to others. And, they need to be, I guess, taught a lesson in humility and humanity. That no, just because you've got all of this power and status and money and whatever does not mean anything really, in the grand scheme of things. So it's something about, and I personally enjoy it. I enjoy kind of seeing what those types of guys get brought down a peg or two, because you so rarely see it in the real world. So seeing it in fiction is very satisfying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've been watching a lot of K-dramas, Korean dramas, and we just finished one called Bride of Hayback, where the main male character is a god, and he gets stuck on Earth without his abilities, but that doesn't make him think he's any less of a god just because he can't do anything. He still thinks he should be obeyed and wants to order people around and be treated like a god, and they're all looking at him like, you're a guy with a big ego, what's the problem here? And over the course of the show, he actually starts to identify with these poor puny humans who don't ever get any power. And we get to see him grow in that way, where he finally comes to care about somebody beside himself and his own power and his own satisfaction. So it's a long time coming, but it's nice to see at the end, because some of this just never crossed his godly mind that these things work that way. Which brings me to kind of a craft question, and that is, how do you have a bad boy who is bad enough to need redemption, but how do you keep the reader from getting so ticked at them a third of the way into the book that they just pitch the book and go, I can't stand this guy, he's such a dick? Harry.
Ooh. I don't know that we've ever redeemed anybody that bad. I mean, I think we've always tried to give our characters at least that some kind of core of humanity and relatability in there. I'm trying to think. Rachel, who would you say was like the worst one that we've ever redeemed? That
I would say our lawyer.
Yeah, he's probably the worst one.
Right. And then there was that short story we wrote ages and ages and ages ago with the rocks.
Ah, yes.
That was another entitled
On the Rocks.
Bad Boy.
Rich,
On the Rocks, yeah. And he was an entitled wealthy rich boy, with commitment issues. I think those two are probably the worst. We have some anti-heroes like Julian from the Asheville Arcana, and some Daryl from Herc's Mercs, but not really like bad. I think the closest one we've got is we never followed up on him, and he was at the end of Blood Bathory. Marcel. Yeah, we were going to give him his own book where he got his redemption arc, but we haven't done it yet.
Understand.
We've not written anybody that bad that we've actually tried to bring back. We have written some villains. In fact, my favorite villain in all of our stories is actually a fallen hero. We take Spartacus and we turn him into an evil vampire. And well, he's got reasons. I mean, he didn't just wake up and decide to go evil. He had pretty valid reasons, at least from his perspective. As Belinda said, he's the hero of his own story. But we're more likely to cast down a hero than to raise up a true villain.
Yeah.
Okay. Belinda.
Well, from a craft standpoint, I'm actually developing a new series right now, and really just as much time goes into creating the characters and building the outlines and everything as actually goes into writing it sometimes. And I'm laboring over my my villain right now. And when I'm doing something like this, when I'm not just writing off the cuff and I'm, really working to develop something, I have to sit down and treat my villain exactly the same as I do my hero and heroine, or hero and hero, whatever. They have to be fully developed as a character. You have to know their wants, their needs, their fears, their shames, their addictions. You need to know all that stuff. You need to know their strengths and their weaknesses, their goals, their motivations, their conflicts. You have to do all of that. And that way you can give them that humanity, that appeal, that depth, that they're not just a two-dimensional, I've written plenty of two-dimensional heroes. They're plot devices. And your hero has to be formidable to bring your lead characters up. And it's like, if you look at comic books, compare the rogues gallery of Batman to the rogues gallery of Spider-Man. And here you've got Spider-Man, who's really a super powerful character, but he's kind of, cutie booty and all that stuff. Batman's a human, and he's a smart human. And his rogues gallery is scary, where, Spider-Man fights against flying pumpkins on skateboards. Some of his villains are just silly. And I think I can think of one silly Batman villain, and that was like Mxyzptlk or something like that. But he's got Bane, and he's got villains that push him up. And it's because the writers at DC, you know, during a lot of these periods of time, were really putting it into the villains. You know, they were really developing the villains as well as the heroes. So that's one element. And the other element is you know, if you're looking that you might want to redeem a character, you know, make them an anti-hero. And an anti-hero is just somebody like Han Solo, who operates by their own rules. They have their own code of ethics. They have their own morals. And it may not apply to general population or general morality or whatever. But when they hit that line of that's too far, they won't go any further. Mad Dog, Avon from These Old Shades. You know, these are characters that they operate outside of the norm, but their code of honor is still just as stringent, even though they think they may not have one. It is still a powerful code of honor. So these are all things, you know, that I look at, like if I'm going to really, really like this particular series, my villain just has to be formidable and not necessarily a villain so much as a antagonist, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one thing I wanted to, since we're talking about craft,
Mhm.
one thing that, you know, my suggestion would be is show the reader the bad guy's softness or the vulnerability. You may not show the hero. The hero may not see it, but if the reader does, then that's going to give them some sympathy, and they won't, as you say, you know, just be like, this guy's a dick, you know, not worth it. You've got to show them that, yes, there is something in there that is worthy of the hero pulling it out and, you know, falling in love and all of that. So even if the hero doesn't see it, the reader needs to.
Good point.
Absolutely.
Ari, anything to add to that or to the idea of how what you think of when you say anti-hero? Because I've heard a lot of different definitions. I like what Belinda said, but you know, what do you guys think?
Oh, well, my favorite anti-hero, and not to, I mean, it's been kind of ruined for me in the universe, but Severus Snape will always be close to my heart. Though my very first major anti-hero crush was on Magneto. I have always thought that Magneto was the best character in the Marvel universe. You know, if I had to meet one character, it would probably be him or Wolverine. I mean, I love Wolverine as well. But, you know, as Belinda said, these people have got, you know, they have their own code. They live by it. And, you know, when you look at an anti-hero like Magneto, and it's like, why did he go bad? Well, he's got perfectly valid reasons.
He's got very good valid
being
reasons
bad.
to go bad. Yeah.
You know, so it's like he's got, you know, it's like, oh, he's a villain because he hates all humans. It's like he hates all humans because they tried to kill him and his family and took everything away from him and used him as a tool. So it's like, you know, to make that kind of connection, I would love, absolutely love to be able to write a character like that. But that is going to be something that is going to probably take a heck of a lot of development, you know, to get that character where it's like, oh my God, they're so bad, but I know why they're bad and I can see why they're bad. And I may hate what they're doing. You know, I may hate that they are killing, you know, these people, but I know why they're doing it. And I can relate to that if I were in their place. And that's the big thing where you want your reader to be, right? You want your reader to be in the character's place and go, yes, I would do the same thing. That's how I would handle it. I totally get them. I totally sympathize with them. And I think that's the genius of a really good anti-hero. It's like they're doing things I wish I would never have to do in my whole life. But yeah, I can see why they do it. And I could see myself doing the same thing.
Okay. Well, folks, believe it or not, we have blown through a lot of our time. So before we go, I want to go around and have everybody say what books they've got coming up or recent or just out, and tell us a little bit about those books, and then tell us where we can find you online. And Rachel, why don't you start us off?
Okay. So my brand, the Rachel Langella brand, can be found on ReMcKay.com. Currently we are working on something, woohoo, and we're hoping to get out a shorter holiday, sort of like novella, and it'll be under the Ari McKay brand. It's a contemporary romance, and so hopefully that'll be out by the holiday season. And I can be found in addition to ReMcKay.com. I can also be found on YouTube at the Crone Cartel channel. I've been doing some YouTube videos lately. So that's where I've been putting my social media time.
Okay, Belinda.
Well, my newest is a book called Witch Taker, which is a paranormal Western out of the Tin Star Witches shared author universe. It's a male-male romance. You can find it. See if I can get it up here. You can find it at Amazon.com. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. This is kind of a out of my wheelhouse. I live in cattle country and stuff, and I don't really think about writing Westerns. And then when I do, it's like, yeah. It's kind of natural. But what I did was I pulled, this series originated in, their location was New Mexico, and they were just let us pick our own locations for this half of the series. And I put it in the Redwood Forest. So I have a gunfighter his title is Witch Taker, and he is hunting down a really frightening, monstrous witch who lives in the redwoods. And of course, we know that, our monstrous witch is not being portrayed as what he really is. And I loosely based it. The idea, weird enough, and I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember this, The 6 Lives of Thomasina was I think a Disney movie.
I had a cat named Thomasina. I know exactly what you're
the
talking
scary
about.
witch in the woods. Yeah. And so I put him in the Redwood Forest, and he's just misunderstood. He's not that bad. But yeah, I decided to take my gunfighter and put him in the Redwood Forest. So it was kind of fun because I went to college out there, and so I had fun with it.
Very nice.
Yeah, and my website is under reconstruction, so I apologize, but you can go to my website. It's just one page right now. And I spend a lot of time on Facebook. That's where you can usually find me. I've got presences on other sites, but that just seems to be the the comfort zone for me right now.
Okay, Ari?
I am primarily on Facebook, so you can find me as Ari McKay on Facebook. And our latest book that has been released was in the Asheville Arcana series. It was called Stop Dragging My Heart Around, part of the Magic Emporium. And so that can be found on Amazon along with the rest of our books. We do have both author names. So Ari McKay for the contemporaries and the historicals, and Rachel Langella for the paranormals and the urban. Actually, it's more urban fantasy than anything else, but yeah, that's where we can be found.
Okay. I'm pretty easy to find as Gail Z. Martin for the non-romance and Morgan Brice for the romance. The latest books out are Blink, which is in the Treasure Trail series, and Trash and Treasure, which has a fated mate story between an adorable raccoon shifter and a baker who is a possum shifter, and there are seductive donuts. So what more do you really want in a love story besides donuts?
Yes.
So
you can have magic ponies.
That's right. That's right.
I give people magic ponies.
Magic ponies are important, but donuts still matter. Give the donuts to the magic pony, and there you have happy magic. There you go. So you can find me there. You can find me on Facebook and Twitter, some variation of those names, and every other social platform. But mostly you can find me here at Continual. So thank you all very much for spending some time with us tonight and talking about this very important Dicks, Pricks, and Hellspawn subject, which we need to cover. That's great. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. We'll talk about more romance here in Continual. So we'll see you online.